Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to Prison Professors. I am Michael Santos. Today we are going to listen to an individual who went through prison, came back to society, and started to build a platform that would lead to business opportunities and employment for other formerly incarcerated people, which I just think is super awesome. And I will look forward to hearing more from Daniel Bull and the company that he founded called 068. We're going to hear all about that during this story, but let's start by introducing Daniel and learning a little bit about what brought Daniel into the criminal justice system. So Daniel, welcome to our program. Tell our audience a little bit about your background, if you would.
Well, thank you for having me, Michael. I'm excited to just meet you and learn about what you're doing and the positive message that you're providing others. So jump right into it. I came from the venture community. I grew up with lots of opportunity. I grew up well with a great network, had a degree, what people say is the prerequisites for a successful life. And as a young man with over a lot of confidence, I started a venture advisory firm for angel capitalists across the country.
Daniel, if I can interrupt you for a second to get you to just slow it down a little bit for our audience, many of whom, don't have a high education in business and may not understand what a venture background is. And it would just be great if you could help them understand how you got there, because I know you didn't go into venture capital just by accident. You had to prepare for it through high school and college and everything else, and then even explain a little bit about what venture is, if you could, for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And also this kind of goes to one of our main points we'd like to hit home today is when you don't know something, to research it. Nothing is out of your grasp, especially when you have time. Hopefully you have some form of resources to educate yourself. If there's anything I share that I don't go into, put a plan together, learn it. But so yes, to venture capital, it was an interesting road. It was not intentional. I did go get a high school degree. I then did go to college where I got a degree in mechanical engineering. In engineering, you can emphasize your studies on certain topics, and I decided to emphasize my studies on thermodynamics. Thermodynamics is the study of energy cycles. So all of your electricity that maybe comes from hydro or coal or natural gas or nuclear, that is the study of thermodynamics. So what this prepared me for was a strong grasp on math and physics and analyzing very complex systems. That transferred really well into venture capital when I decided that I was more interested in finance and the starting of businesses and innovative ideas than I was with standing or sitting behind a cubicle punching numbers all day. I still ended up punching numbers, but it was a different kind of number. It was a live number. It dealt with people and ideas, and I liked that. So that's how I stepped into venture capital. But I had no experience, and I was young, and all I had were ideas. And again, as I mentioned, just a lot of confidence in myself. And so rather than work for a venture firm, I decided to start my own with two business partners who brought a little bit more experience to the table, but I convinced them to join me in a new endeavor. So that is what I did before, and that is also where my crime occurred. Over 2008 and 2010, when the recession was happening, it was actually the heyday, and I mean the heyday of angel and venture capital private placements. People were losing a lot of money on the stock market. Everyone knows that. Well, like gamblers, people who were losing a lot of money in the stock market were trying to earn it back through risky startup endeavors that were promising, 10 times, 20 times a return of principal And the thing is it was working for a period of time. So my company between 2008 and 2010 went from a very small boutique firm in Pittsburgh, PA, to a national firm with tens of thousands of clients, all who were considered high net worth. I was 26 years old at the height of the company, where we had a back office of about 64 brokers, underwriters, compliance managers, and staff. And in 2010, just like what happened for the regular stock market in 2008, in 2010, the private placement market just collapsed and transactions weren't happening. So revenues weren't being created. And I saw what I thought was a forever thing start crumbling. And then I started to steal in order to keep it going. I met payroll for 6 months by taking money that was given to us to place in startups, and rather than placing it in the startup I was saying it was being placed, I was placing it in our company. And it went back and forth for a series of months until I really had a nervous breakdown and confessed to my business partners, and then eventually our clients what I had done, which led to a long, drawn-out investigation by many branches of government, and landed me with a criminal case of mail fraud, a single count of mail fraud, and a 21-month federal prison sentence. So I know that was fast, but I think a lot of people can relate to wherever they are, whatever their journey was to become incarcerated. It was a decision I made, a terrible one, a fatal one, and I found myself in a place I never, ever thought I would be.
Let me do a recap on that, if I could. We're talking to Daniel Bull, who started off with a background that would have suggested an incredibly charming career, rather than a career that leads somebody, or rather than a decision that leads somebody into the criminal justice system. As an investment advisor, he raised capital, it sounds like, from investors who trusted him to put that money into different investments where he saw great opportunities. But when things went wrong, he started to use money that was supposed to go into investments to fund his business. And the thing that I think is similar to a lot of people, particularly white-collar offenders, is that he didn't set out with any intention of committing a crime, but rather changes in the marketplace led to him, it really influenced his decisions. And before you know it, he was making decisions that crossed criminal lines. Is that an accurate assessment, Daniel?
Yeah, it is. I remember the day I pushed the button. I was playing in the living room with my 1-year-old daughter, and just the stress of knowing I wasn't going to be able to make payroll was bombarding me. I remember feeling it in my chest, a physical pressure, and this idea came to me. Well, I have this money. It hasn't been allocated, and I have full discretion over it. I could use this for a period of time. I'll replace it. I'll never let these people down. I began justifying, and then I pushed that button. And nothing happened, right? We didn't bounce payroll. Things went on. No one raided our office. It was replaced, and that was the problem. It worked.
Yeah, that's a problem that leads a lot of people down that slippery slope. And before you know it, sometimes it doesn't work. And then they find themselves facing accusations of criminal wrongdoing. What did you do when you eventually did get caught and the FBI, or rather you confessed, and authorities began investigating you? How did you prepare for the judicial process? What steps did you take?
I mean, I was clueless. I had never been through anything. I never even fought a parking ticket. So it was all foreign to me, the entire process. I just was tired of being a liar, because it led down a path of being a pretty extraordinary liar, trying to explain why things weren't making sense on balance sheets, creating even false documents in order to hide what was going on internally to people I cared about deeply. So I didn't do much to prepare. I didn't go to an attorney. I just wanted to stop lying. I realized I was in a cycle. I realized I was really now under the control of a lie that I created, and I didn't like it. And so I just began by coming forward. And it it required a lot of pressure. It wasn't as if I was admirable and people were clueless. The writing was on the wall that something wrong is happening. And rather than just continue the charade, I decided it's time to call it quits.
How did prosecutors and the judge respond to your willingness to accept responsibility and describe what happened and help them unravel the decisions that led to your problems with the law?
Well, the results were in the sentencing. I was facing 68 months was my sentencing guideline, and the judge sentenced me to 21. No one else was. I had a huge difference, unprecedented. I didn't see it coming whatsoever. I felt like I deserved the maximum punishment. I had no co-defendants. It wasn't a matter of cooperation, other than it was from the very first interview with the postal inspectors and FINRA and the SEC. I just told them the truth, and I helped them unravel what was to them quite complicated, because I had been hiding my tracks, and they wanted to learn. So, in all of this, the irony is I could have laid people off, told the truth, and it could have been seen as a flop. But the reality is, by doing what I had done, everyone lost their job. Everyone lost their wealth. Well, not meaning people that worked for the company. And it became worse than it could have ever been. So it's kind of something I go back to. And you can always get back there, where, a bad decision can be way worse than just a hard, good decision.
Yeah, but we could learn from guys like you who tell us a story about how they decided to, just sever ties with making bad decisions and start making good decisions, and that resulted in a lower sentence for you. Tell us a little bit about your experience in prison during those 21 months.
So I went in without any type of I had no understanding. There's no information. There was no information online to educate myself on what I was about to get into. At least nothing positive. So I went in really unsure. I had trained myself. So, if it's the worst case scenario that Hollywood likes to present it as, then I was going to fight. I wasn't going to be made a victim. If it was less than that, if there was this thing such as Club Fed, which I didn't really want to see. I actually wanted punishment, but I had no idea. And I share that because I want everyone to resonate that I was extremely naive. But what I was naive in to reality of what I experienced shocked me. I expected there to be violence. I expected there to be all of this pain. And though you go in and you cannot help but feel the sense of despair that is ever present inside a prison, what I was shocked to find was there was also a great deal of thought, strong thought, innovation in the form of ideas and conversation, and really intelligent people, specifically entrepreneurs. I just kept seeing the writing on the wall, the skill sets that people need in order to be successful. And they were coming from all walks. And I mean from middle school, high school dropouts who just had a very clear understanding of what the bootstrap grind is in entrepreneurship, what cash management is. And then there was also the high level thinkers, those who had extraordinary business experience, who, because of their own mistakes, were serving time, but it didn't negate that they were incredible businessmen. That shocked me. And when I studied the numbers of how many were incarcerated and I analyzed the percentages of what that might mean, the amount of potential talent stored in the prison system and also unutilized in the reentry world because they're now branded felons, they can't get jobs, they're unemployed. When I analyzed, this is me back to my engineering thermodynamics, how much potential and acumen, business, working man hours were unutilized, I saw this is an opportunity not just for profit, an opportunity to do something new with this horrible legacy I've now created, but this is a social implication that might be the greatest battle of the U.S. and our society's time. You think of all of our struggles, our incarceration, reentry population is it. It's sort of the critical mass of our failure as a community. And making an impact there, I thought, could be something that is world changing. So that was my idea. Big and arrogant, but it was just ever clear to me.
So you get through the 21 months with a sense of finding a way to make the time work for you. You go in there as an educated man, come out with a plan. How do you start to execute that plan when you get out? First of all, when did you get out? And tell us how you went about launching this new venture that would help more incarcerated people transition into society successfully.
I was released July 8th, 2013. I was released bankrupt. I had nothing left. Everything went to pay restitution of those who had lost money. I was divorced. I was estranged from my two daughters and my ex-wife. I had no communication with them. So what I did, of course, have was my ideas and education. I was not naive enough to think that I was just going to get out and start a business. That was not my intent. I had a strong idea. I had lots of business plans and ideas to run with, but the most important thing is I knew I needed to survive. I needed to begin restoring my credit immediately as the Justice Department would allow. I needed to get a job to do that. I needed to find a place to live. I went purely on survival mode, basic necessity focused. That is what I spent my time doing. And that was whether it be applying for jobs using my degree in engineering or applying for stock boy jobs. I was going to try and find something to create a base level survival, base level standard of living to build from. And that's what I sought to do until I got a job in about 3 months, which statistically is really fast. But in those 3 months, I thought I would never get a job.
Yeah, stop for a second here and help our listeners understand that. You just said that you are a college-educated individual, an individual who is fluent with both financial markets and professional credentials such as engineering, thermodynamic engineering, physics, and mathematics. And you just said that it took you 3 months to get a job. And statistically, you said that was really quite fast for somebody who's formerly incarcerated. That's an important takeaway for people who are in jail or going into the system, is that coming back after a prison term is not always easy. And you experienced that. I think 3 months is fast you said it was fast, but the reality is it's hard. Tell us what you've seen with others.
Well, I'll even tell you what my experience was, because I have to also give recognition that when I did receive a job, it was someone who knew me before, a friend of a friend who specifically sought me out to give me a job, now he specifically sought me out to give me a job, a temporary job, because he was able to separate my crime from the businessman that I was. He saw that he could probably get someone he could have never hired before, and he could get him for a bargain. And he needed help with his company. So if it weren't for him seeking me out, I strongly believe I would have been statistically unemployed for the average of 1 year, which is the average on reentry. The average unemployment is 1 year. And that's not to discourage anyone. That's also to give people context for it's a grind. I was offered 3 professional jobs in my first 3 months. I signed contracts 3 times in my first 3 months, while at the same time being open of my past, talking about my felony. Michael, 3 times after signing a contract, being given a start date, I was called a day or a week before my start by someone who I'd never spoken to, someone high in HR, in human resources of the company that had hired me. And they said, there's a problem. Don't come in. We'll call you back.
Very
General
important
Electric.
data point for people listening to this program, and anybody going through our course should be thinking about that. That's one of the lessons that we teach in our Straight A Guide introductory course. I describe steps that I took well in advance of my release that helped me overcome those challenges that Daniel and thousands of other people experience. And if you want to begin positioning yourself for a successful reentry, the time to start preparing yourself for the job market is today. Not when you get out, but as soon as you go into the system, be thinking about what steps you can take, sow those seeds, nurture those seeds, and you, I think, advance the possibilities of becoming successful. But Daniel, tell us a little bit more about what happened for you after you succeeded in getting that baseline stability with that first job, because in a relatively short period of time, you went from being just employed to becoming the founder and CEO of 068. I'd love to hear that story of how you made that transition.
So the company that offered me a job was a prototyping company in Newark, Delaware. I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So my requirements was working from home or my apartment and traveling to Newark, Delaware for a few days every 2 weeks in order to catch up with the owner and basically implement any ideas or any strategies that I had been hired to create. Though this owner was really excited to give me an opportunity, he was also afraid at the ramifications it might have had for his business if it was, let's say, found out in a scandalous way that I worked there. He didn't want to be deceitful, but he wanted to protect his company and his employees. And so we agreed that I would work for him as a consultant under an independent LLC that I needed to create. So I needed the Justice Department to allow me to start a business again. So September of 2013, I used this opportunity to begin the very first step in my business plans that I had created while inside, was to start a company about giving second chances to felons called 068. And so I founded 068 LLC to give the very first second chance, which was my own. And that was the entity I was given permission to start from the Justice Department. And I signed a contract with Solidified Inc., a prototyping company in Newark, Delaware, to provide them consulting services for a 3-month contract. So that's how 068 actually started, was this employer and friend who wanted to give me that second chance.
And what does 068 do right now?
I worked for a prototyping company, which again, you could call it even a miracle, being that 068's business plan inside was always about taking ideas at the beginning, at the incubation stage, at the idea stage, and launching them as legitimate companies. So finding myself placed at a prototyping firm, I was surrounded by ideas, and also the process for creating prototypes and launching ideas. So right off the bat, almost serendipitously, an ex-offender, a hyper-creative ex-offender, walks into the doors of Solidified wanting to start a business and openly shares he has a past of incarceration. He would be even considered a career criminal, multiple incarcerations, but he had just this portfolio of ideas. He was a real entrepreneur. The unfortunate thing is he always used his innovation and his abilities to scam, whether it be to override security systems and steal cars and motorcycles, or others. His ideas always found their way into a more illegitimate sector. But he came in wanting to turn it around. He had recently been released again, and his portfolio of ideas were nothing short of phenomenal, and they worked, and they were patentable. So we started with one company. I approached the founder of Solidified saying, I would like to get behind this particular entrepreneur. I would like to endorse him, so to speak. And together, me and him went and sought patent protection of, which is, considered intellectual property is the term, but patent protection of one of his ideas, just one, a straw, a simple plastic extruded straw. And that straw did something pretty incredible. the straw, because it had a throttle and a vent, which we won't get into the thermodynamics of that, was able to rapidly cool liquid from the moment you suck the liquid up to when it touches your lips, from boiling hot to room temperature, ambient temperature. And it had the reverse effect on hypercool liquids, rapidly warm liquids from ice cold to room temperature, just by using it as you would any other straw. This allowed us to get a utility patent, and that utility patent is only one of 3 patents in the straw community, a $6 billion industry. So
and were you able to bring the straw to market?
We didn't bring the straw to market, but what we did was we were able to license the patent side of it to a company that was already well into the market. And we exited, 068 exited, and we used proceeds from that and others to start new ideas. So where we are today, to answer your question.
Whoa. You can't go over the highlights there, buddy. How much did you guys put into 068? How much did 068 put into the fund? And what was the exit?
It cost us $10,000 to get the patent and do the prototyping necessary in order to get the patent. That single exit has brought us to, within 4 years, to 13 companies, cumulatively generate $7.2 million in revenue a year.
That is an amazing story, and it should be inspiring to anybody who is listening to this program. We just heard the story of an individual who went to prison, who wrote a business plan while he was in prison, who executed that business plan once he got out, and then with another felon started a company that has catapulted him into a venture that's currently generating more than $7 million a year in annual revenues. And how many people is that are employed by those 13 companies, Daniel?
There's 178 jobs that have been created. These are not temporary jobs. These are not seasonal jobs. These are careers. And the key to some of we have quite a few rules within 068. One, a job to us isn't worth creating unless it pays a living wage. So one of the facts I'm most proud of between all of our entrepreneurs and all of the companies that are within our organization is that there isn't a single individual, no matter the task, that makes less than $32,000 a year as a base. That's a driving principle of living wage, of true second chance opportunities. And that $32,000 might not be a lot, but when you're at $32,000, you're actually making more than 50% of the working population in the U.S. That's the inflection point. That's the number where you are making more than half of everyone else. So we see that as a place you can launch from. You can launch from that living wage.
Absolutely. And that's important to point out, is that we've got to be willing to take small steps so that we can put ourselves in a position to take bigger steps. Had Daniel not used his time in prison to write business plans, he may not have been able to launch this venture so easily when he got out. And had that individual who had been in prison multiple times not made a change of mindset to say, I'm going to start using my ingenuity and entrepreneurial skills to build businesses, he may not have been able to come home with a portfolio of ideas that a businessman like Daniel could see and take to an investor and said, let's raise some capital and build something. And then create jobs for more than 170 people, generating taxable revenues of more than $7 million a year. They are the best possible outcome from our criminal justice system, but they are also creating a pathway that others who are going into the system can follow. I'm particularly interested, Daniel, in this partner who came to you with the initial idea. Is he still with 068 or has he moved on?
You mean the entrepreneur that had the first idea?
Yes, the straw idea. Is he still with you?
Yes. No, we moved on. He took his proceeds and has lived his life. We've never launched another one of his ideas. All of them great ideas. You know, there's two sides to the story. Success is almost a mindset more than it is an actual place. When you have $1 million, you want $1 billion. When you want a house, you want a mansion. For many people who judge success by material things. But you can be successful in just a mindset of providing for your family and paying your bills on time. I mean, some things that I never thought I'd be able to do again. So what I would say is about that entrepreneur, he's still chasing a success that really you can never achieve. And so we parted ways. I'm more interested in job creation and self-sustainability than I am just on the revenues and the jobs. We talk about our revenues and jobs because it impresses people and gains traction and attention because people think that's important. I'm more excited that we've done all of this without debt and without actually raising money from any outside source. That $10,000 was my $10,000. I used my consulting fee to get it going. And inside the company, it's been the profits of the other companies that have just continually fed this engine. It doesn't mean it's ideal. And in fact, I would have probably preferred it to have been different, to have banks and governments and organizations throw money at us. But I also see that what has occurred has been pretty special. It's been felons truly feeding, investing into the dreams of others and creating jobs and opportunities for those. I mean, over 80% of our employees also have criminal backgrounds. How beautiful is that?
That is something that I'm going to ask you to connect us with, because those 80% of those employees can certainly help us to educate and inspire other individuals who are in prison. And that's really what Prison Professors is all about. And we would define success as just staying out of the criminal justice system after you're released, because our system is really exquisitely designed to perpetuate intergenerational cycles of failure, whether it's somebody who goes into the system with a professional degree or without a high school diploma. The system really keeps people on a pathway to unemployment and struggle. But it's ideas that Daniel Bull is describing that can lead people on to success. And again, we define success as just staying out of prison, building a life of meaning, relevance, and contribution. We're so grateful to have this connection with 068, and we hope to profile many of those other individuals who have benefited from Daniel Bull's ingenuity and disruptive approach to creating jobs. Rather than putting people on a pathway to mediocrity and minimum wage jobs, he says that he is looking for jobs that provide a livable wage. And that is something that we can celebrate. And we look forward to meeting more people who have the mindset of 068, profiling them so that people who are locked in prisons and jails across America can recognize they can become something more than past bad decisions. Daniel, we've reached the end of this episode. Could you give us some final words of wisdom and perhaps contact information of how people may reach out to 068 if they want to connect with you further?
The exciting news is that we have launched 2 new offices. So 068 is not alone. Now we're a part of a conglomerate called Zero Model. So there's 083 in DC, founding partner. Her name is Katie Leonard. There's 020 in Atlanta. All of these numbers are federal designation numbers for the cities in which people are prosecuted and sentenced in the federal system. But we are not exclusive to the feds or the state or local. We're not exclusive to those with backgrounds. We consider ourselves, if you have an idea and you're open-minded into creating second chances for those who have earned it, then you don't have to have a background to work for us or to start a company with us. So whoever's listening to this now, the way to get a hold of us in the future is going to be going to zeromodel.com. That will be the place to start. You can send applications. You can see job postings. We have a staffing firm that is national called JobRise, which partners with existing companies who have decided second chance employment is something they want to do. We have high-level jobs. We have entry-level jobs, executive jobs. That is where to begin. JobRise and Zero Model is where I would recommend getting started. And I will tell you this, do not be discouraged by the walls that go up in your reentry. Be motivated and be creative. Okay? Those will direct you in another direction, maybe something you hadn't expected or wanted, but follow the direction. In many ways, sometimes the path of least resistance, and get yourself stable, and then start conquering those walls. Then start trying to climb them. So that would be my advice. Thank you, Michael, for having me on your show.
We appreciate your wisdom. We look forward to developing a relationship that profiles the Zero Ventures, and we hope to encourage more entrepreneurs who are in prison that want to come out and create jobs, create lives of meaning, relevance, and dignity. They can do so by following the model that Daniel Bull just described. I am Michael with Prison Professors, and on behalf of my two partners, Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny, I want to thank you for listening. If you are listening to this outside of prison and you have access to iTunes, please subscribe to the program, rate and review the show so we can get more distribution. And if you'd like to have more information on how we can help you, please visit prisonprofessors.com or text the word Prison Pro to 44222. We will be back with another inspiring guest tomorrow. Thank you.